Hey, what's up? How you doing? This is my podcast, Why Aren't You More Famous? I'm Adam Mitrani. Today I'm joined by my friend Liz Glazer.
Who's that?
You?
Never heard of her. She's not more famous. That's why she's on the podcast.
Yeah, I couldn't. I tried getting other guests. Kevin Hart said no.
Sure.
Matthew McConaughey said no.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, it would be an interesting question for someone who's that level of fame. Why aren't you more famous?
Well, yeah, do you think that at that level that you still want to be more famous?
I wonder. I mean, I was thinking about this. Is like, I'm not opposed to fame, but fame for me has never been the goal. Mm-hmm. But I recognize that it's a necessary consequence of the things that I desire, which is to be, I guess, relatable enough to be consumable by many people. Mm-hmm. But the actual fame of it, I feel like, is a job on top of, whatever, the consequences of expressing yourself in such a way that a lot of people want to listen.
It's so interesting that you phrase like fame as a consequence when for so many people like in our field it's the goal.
Yeah.
So the goal for you is what then?
I mean, the goal is being a working comedian and continuing to, be able to work. Like, I feel like, now we're recording, it's the beginning of a year. It's the beginning of 2025. I don't know how transparent or not you are in terms of, podcast timing and stuff like that.
I haven't, at the point of recording this, my goal is to put out the first episode at the end of the month. But so at the point of recording this, I haven't released anything. So we'll see how that ends up lining up.
Right, exactly. But so it's the beginning of the year, which I mentioned because a lot of times that's, a time that people reevaluate goals and things like that. And so, for me this year, like 2 years ago, I had a goal of headlining, I think it was 25 times. And I beat that by I got to like 50 or something that year. Yeah. And then last year, I didn't have the goal of headlining a certain number of times, but like I definitely met it more, but more by necessity because last year my big goal beginning of the year was I knew that I was taping a special because I had a date with a theater. And so in order to prep for that special, I was like, okay, well, I want to headline as much as I can so I can kind of find what I'm going to do and rehearse and, whatever, just like get specifically reps for the special taping. You look like you're going to say something.
No, I'm just listening.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. So that was the goal then. Now I feel like, I put a lot on tape last year because I taped the special, which will come out soon. And I had 2 other set tapings last year that came out. One was the Don't Tell set and one was the Nateland set. And so that was like a big year for me in terms of like putting stuff down,
Yeah.
So my goal getting into any of this was I was so wowed in my own experience of doing stand-up with like, I can just like be myself on stage and that can be a job. Like that was so incredible for me that the goal has always been, to get even more honest and even more me while also doing the job of, structuring whatever I'm saying such that it gets laughs, such that I can keep doing it in places that are fun and that sell tickets and whatever. The fact that there's fame, I mean, I also love acting, but I love it for the same reason, because it's like, I've always like wanted to just get even closer to the truth. That's been my thing from as long as I've been doing this and really my whole life.
Yeah.
And the fact that fame comes with that, and I don't mean this like, oh, I'm above thinking about fame. I'm not. But I guess I've just like, heard enough people talk about how annoying it is to not be deluded by the fact of it itself and the goal of it itself.
Well, and you also, I mean, you got into comedy was like your second career, which I think that kind of changes that perspective on it. Where like I think for a lot of people, like myself included, this is sort of like pursuing this art form. Like for me, this is all I've known as an adult. Even though like I've obviously had several day jobs.
Sure.
You know, this is the only thing that I pursue. I guess I want to like, you know, talk. I know I've talked to you a little bit about that, like off mic, but talk to you about that, like. So you were a lawyer.
Yep.
And then when did you start comedy?
In 2013, when I was 33 years old. And so I am a lawyer, and I worked for a brief time as a practicing lawyer, but mostly I was a professor, which was what I wanted to do in law. Like I didn't, at the time, that was like such a pipe dream, but I got to do it. Yeah. I got tenure. I was like, you know, really at the height of where that was going to go for me. And I think that was a necessary element to it, because it wasn't like I was looking for a way out or I was dissatisfied. I was disenchanted with some aspects of the career for sure. And certainly when I did stand up, I had this like electrifying experience of it, in the sense that I just got on stage and I kind of went from not much. Like I had written something down, but thankfully I didn't say it. And then I just was like kind of talking, and it wasn't like good, but it was good enough that I was high enough and delusional enough to pursue it. Does that make sense?
It does. I think that was similar to when I started. I felt like I had like ideas for jokes, and then I mean that's even still how I write a lot, is kind of like I have an idea and then I kind of go on stage and talk. But were you a big comedy fan?
No.
Growing up? So like what was the thing that made you be like, I'm gonna do stand up?
Well, I was,
because it's such a I know that there's a lot of like lawyers that become comedians. It's not that crazy of a transition. But it feels like it.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, like I don't know anyone in legal academia who like, you know, gave up like a tenured position to do comedy. I don't know a single person who fits into that.
It's a pretty crazy thing to do.
It's crazy. I mean, it is nuts. And so, because it's the safest job you could have.
Right.
And it was a good job because you're compensated not like other professors, but, you know, not the same as like, certainly not if you were like a partner at a law firm, but like you make more money than like a philosophy professor because you're in the law school. Yeah. And so it's a cushy job in a way, but you know, I guess it was a couple of things. One is I took an improv class. The teacher was like, you should do stand up. I had a crush on her, so I would have done whatever.
Right. And
then I did it eventually. When she first said it, I was like, no, thank you. But then I did do it and I loved it. And that was kind of just like how I got the bug. But I was funny and I appreciated certainly like the idea of being funny. Because I was teaching, so I knew that I was funny because I would get like, you know, comments in evaluations or whatever, like she's funny but you know, I don't know anything about property law or whatever it might have been. But it was that, you know, and then I took an improv class and I really loved that. And then it kind of went from there. But also like I have like a few moments that now I look back on as significant, where I encountered people in law who were super passionate about what they were doing. And I was able to recognize their passion in a kind of envious way, where I was like, I wish I loved what we both do for our job as much as you clearly love it. Yeah. And I just didn't. And I have an instance of that in law school when I was, you know, another student. I have one story like that from when I was a practicing lawyer, and then one from when I was teaching. And like each of those was significant for me looking back because, you know, it's like I wanted to do something really bad, right? And like I wanted to have that pull to something. And I think I found it really the most when I did stand-up for the first time.
And you felt like it was pretty immediate. Like once you did stand-up, you were like, this is kind of...
Oh, 100%.
This is the thing that I was
For me, it was like kissing a woman for the first time.
Yeah. Because I was going to ask you about that because it does sound like it's similar. So when did you come out?
Well, I knew I was gay from like an early time, but I did have a boyfriend in college and he graduated before me. And I think when he graduated, it sort of, opened up like the time in my life when I was like more like, oh, well, I am attracted to women. And I remember when I kissed Marissa for the first time, that was like, it was this, fireworks went off type of thing. Yeah. Right. And it's not that I didn't have romantic feelings for my ex-boyfriend, because what we had was real.
Yeah.
But it was always like, well, it was sort of, more the law firm job version.
That's it. That's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't hate it, but it's like it's not what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I want to make sure that I don't skirt around the question of fame too much, because I feel, and maybe this is the lawyer in me, very devoted to answering the question as posed.
Okay.
Rather than saying, well, I don't care about being famous, and so that's that. Because do you know Daniel Janine?
The name sounds vaguely familiar.
He's awesome. He is amazing. He is an amazing stand-up comedian. He's very funny. He's great, whatever. He asked me, I hope he doesn't mind my sharing this story, because it was a question that he asked me. And I've told him since he asked it to me that I was like I love when someone asks me a question that like really challenges me. And he was like, I'm sure I'm going to misquote it too, which also I hope doesn't bother him. But, he was like, do you think you would be like more famous if you were like more of a diva, I think he put it, or just like, I don't know. Like, I think that's a fair estimation. Like if you were just more of a bitch, more of a something, then do you think you'd be like further along in your career? And I don't know if the answer is yes or no. I have no idea. I just found the question so intriguing, and it was the first thing I thought of, and I've been thinking of it since he asked it.
Is that like a gay thing? Like as like a lesbian comic?
I don't know. I don't know if it had anything to do with that. I think he was really just talking about it from a career standpoint, if I understood correctly. But I feel like it was an excellent question, even if it was only for its provocation.
Yeah.
It's not only good because of that.
Right.
But even if that were the only element of it, I still would think it's such a great question. Just because I'm like, it was so out of left field. We were just like right before a show, whatever. But I've been thinking about it because I definitely have this like, I have to be nice all the time thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder sometimes if it gets in my way. And so I just put it out there that this is something that somebody said to me, and it is related to your topic.
It is an interesting question. I also think, I mean, if for some people, like not for everyone, it's going to be like the diva archetype, but that people like to be able to like box you in and say like, this is what type of comic they are. Like, this is who they're for, they cater to.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like, how do you feel like people try to classify you? Or like, do you feel like you ever get put into those boxes?
I don't know. I really have no idea whether I do or I don't. I know that some people have said that I'm likable on stage.
I think that's true.
Sure. Great. I mean, I do try and get out of the way of knowing about this because I don't think I'm very good at it. Like to quote an acting teacher of mine from a long time ago, it was like, other people's opinions of me are none of my business, which I think that
is a great quote.
Yeah, it's someone else's quote. I don't know. It's someone like famous's quote. But anyway, I do believe that because I am not good at holding all that information. So I really have no idea how someone would classify me, if they even are. But I did a roast for the first time recently. I'd never done one before. Yeah, no, I really did well.
Who'd you, was it a roast battle or like a dais?
It was a dais for a friend's birthday.
Okay. Those are very fun. Who was it?
It was Dana Friedman, who I love.
I don't know.
Yeah, she is an awesome woman. She is an Orthodox trans woman comedian who's fantastic.
That's a lot of boxes.
Yeah, it's great. And there were other people who were also on the dais who I took the opportunity to roast. But I kept thinking about Daniel's question as I was prepping for the roast, because I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a good... I mean, it's not like he was like, be mean, right? That was not his note. But he posed the question of whether perhaps, and again, this is my digging deeper into his question versus just the text of it, whether my kind of getting outside of what people think of me and worrying about that in order to control effectively their thinking of me well and as though I'm like a nice person, that maybe that's what's getting in my way the whole time. And so I loved roasting. I didn't think I would. I had avoided it for like 11 years of doing comedy.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Because I feel like, especially like when I first moved here, a lot of times like roast shows were just the easiest ones to get booked on. Right. And so it's like, sure, as long as my rule is basically like, I don't want to do a roast battle with somebody I've never met.
Yeah.
Like that, because then it's all just superficial stuff.
Right.
And I feel weird. Like, I feel like there has to be some understanding of like, you know, the cliche of like, we roast the ones that we love. Yes. And it's like, if there is no understanding of that, then we're just being mean.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be like Jew jokes or black jokes or whatever it is.
Sure.
Like,
or it could be at the very least.
Yeah. Right. It's harder to be creative with it if you don't know.
Yeah, so this was an instance where I knew the person I was mainly roasting, and I also knew various people on the dais. And so, like, one who I went in pretty hard on was somebody I happened to have gone to college with.
Who was it?
Talia Reese.
You're just naming so many people I don't know.
Yeah. No, and she's great.
And, I'm sure they're all funny people.
But yeah, totally. And it was a lot of like people who work in like Jewish spaces, like comedians who do, and I fall within that category as well. So, you know, whatever. But yeah, like I wish to, because certainly like fame is, in my opinion, and as I've pitched it thus far, this kind of necessary byproduct basically of the other stuff. Right. But it's not like, it's almost like it's a proxy. Here's my thing with it. Like, I remember when I was in law school, right, that, I didn't do well as a law student. I had bad grades. And the thing in law school is like there's law review, okay? And law review is a journal. And basically, for the most part, you get on to law review because you're top 10% of the class. Now, that's the proxy in like most law schools. At my law school, it was true, but also you could write a paper and get on, right? Now that was like a hard process, but you could do it, and I did it.
Just by virtue of like having a good paper, or like you say I'm writing a paper for the law review?
The latter.
Okay.
And then it has to be good enough and whatever, but like you can work your butt off to like get it to that place, which is what I did. And I had a relationship with someone who was my year, who was my friend, who helped me get the paper to this place where it was like really good. So because I had that, I was in a position to be effectively scouted by the school that hired me, right? And normally to be a law professor, a tenure track and then tenured law professor, you have to be top 5% of the top 1% of law schools in the country, okay? I went to a good law school. I was not in the top whatever percent, but I had this paper that was searchable on search engines, which led the school to me, and that's how I got interviewed, right? That's how they found me.
Yeah.
And then I ultimately got the job because I figured out how to be good at interviewing for a law professor job. So I effectively had this job that made it look like I was the top of the top of the top, right? But I wasn't. Right. It's not to say that I was like the dirt of the earth.
Yeah.
But I was enough in the top to claw my way to looking like I was at the very top. So when I think about fame, to me, and ultimately, I did it right. Like I had the things that people were looking for to get the job that I would then quit, by the way, which you know and we know because I'm here sitting with you, not teaching school, right? And not publishing law review papers. But I guess chasing fame to me feels a little bit like repeating some of the mistakes. And I do think of them as mistakes, not because they were bad choices, but because they were things that I was chasing that would lead me down a path that was a good path, but I would ultimately leave it. So why was I so concerned with getting the paper that would get me noticed to get the job that I was going to quit anyway? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does. And it almost feels like analogous to like a no-name open micer that suddenly has like a viral TikTok.
Sure.
And then now like, now they're passed at clubs.
Yeah.
And like,
right.
Because you create this illusion.
Yes.
You do work hard, but you create this illusion of being in that top percentage.
100%. That's a great analogy. And I remember when I first started doing stand-up, one of the things that I wished, like in my journal, maybe even out loud, and it's like this thing that kind of haunts me, even though I think I'm right about wishing it, is because I had just come off of this whole career that I it wasn't a mistake. Like to say that being a tenured law professor is a mistake is idiotic, right?
It's so funny because it's so funny whenever people go from something else into comedy, where it's like that is so many people's dream job, and right. You're like, what a waste of time.
Right, totally. Well, it's like, and I'm not saying he has this thought about it, but like there are people like that. Like Paul Ollinger, I don't know if you know Paul, but he was an original investor in Facebook, and he is a comic in New York now. He's a great comic. Wow. He moved from Atlanta because his kids, I think, are in school here. Some, family reason that he moved to New York, and now he's a comic in New York. He's a really good comic, and whatever. But it's just like so interesting because we share that thread where it's like, and I wasn't, an original investor in Facebook, but like, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like, you hit the top of like what anyone's parents, generally speaking, would want for you, right?
Yeah.
But I think those of us, and I can only speak for myself, of course, but like having gone through that ringer, you come out the other side of it, or at least I did, with a little bit of a different spin on goals, right? Because it's kind of like, and I've had to like really wrestle with this at times, because it's like, of course I want to get on the Tonight Show. Of course I want, to do the Don't Tell set or the Nateland set or tape a special or sell out a theater or get passed at this or that club. Like, obviously. But I think because of my experience, chasing that achievement has already taught me the lesson of its emptiness, such that when I first started doing comedy, what I wished, and this is what I was starting with, aloud and in my journal, was I was like, I just want my passion for the thing to be at the same pace as my achievements in the thing, right? Yeah. Which is to say, I don't want to be the guy or woman or person who has the viral whatever that then is like, oh shit, I don't have enough material to back this up, or I'm not good enough on stage to back this up, or whatever it might be. Because I felt that when my first paper, when I first started as a law professor, was accepted at the Northwestern Law Review. And then I felt like, oh my God, that's amazing. But I'm not as good at this as the million people. Like, I remember this story. It's this guy, I think it's fine to say his name. His name is Adrian Vermeule, and he's this like very established conservative law professor, but like huge name, especially in conservative legal thought and theory and academia, and really accomplished. And apparently, I don't know him personally, really. He was a professor at the school that I was a student at. But the legend has it that when he was in practice as a lawyer, he, I guess, was like only mediocre at that. But every time they would have a case come up at work, he would have these Post-it notes of like, oh, I want to write about, because when you have a client, it's like the client's like, hey, can you get us to this outcome that we want? Yeah. And you're like you're a hired lawyer representing this client.
Right.
Whereas if you're a legal academic, you're thinking about theory. Right? And you're like, well, isn't it interesting that like there's this conflict among these two cases? And that's putting it extremely simply. Like there's like a lot of thought to be had in thinking about why the law is the law, or should it be or shouldn't be or whatever. And so basically, as he would get these cases, he would write down like, okay, obviously I have to do this whatever for work, but here's what I'm really thinking about. And all of a sudden he like notices that he's got like tons of these Post-it notes around. And then when he eventually became a law professor, and I think he now teaches at like Harvard, literally, he was writing the paper for each of the Post-it notes. And it's like, isn't that a great way to get into something where you're not doing it, but this is what you're actually thinking about. And then you get to make a life out of it and a living from it. And that's what I wanted. And now I get to do that, you know, in the best moments, because I have these thoughts about this is funny, that's funny, this happened in my life. Oh my God, I have to tell someone. And I want to tell a lot of people about this thing that happened that was ridiculous at Trader Joe's or whatever, right? And I was always doing that, but it was a question of like finding the life and I guess the job that allows you to showcase those moments, right? And what I wanted, and what I still want, is to want to say something so bad that's so compelling in the way that I think it is, that I'm able to translate that to a lot of people, right? In front of me, online, whatever the ways are. You know, watching a television show about things that are interesting and that have happened to me, whatever that is, to do that. And then the fact that there's fame attached is really like this sort of last piece of it, right? And I'm not vain. Of course I'm vain. Right? I think about all the petty, disgusting things that everybody else does. I read my own emails the second after I send them, for God's sake. Like, I'm so self-obsessed. It's gross. That said, I think I've just lived enough. I'm not saying, you know, more than anybody, whatever, but enough that I've been through wanting the glory more than loving the work.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that does come from starting stand-up a little bit
probably
later in life. And, you know, I mean, like, you know, not to make you feel too old, but, you know, you were 5 years older than I am now when you started. And, like, and so I think that, and also, I think, like you kind of said, like, you had already achieved stuff. Yeah. You knew that achievement wasn't, that's not going to make you happy.
Not as an end in itself.
Not having these like sort of like blank achievements, you know. And no, so that's an interesting way of putting it. So I guess I wanted to go back to like more of like what the process was of you like transitioning from being a law professor to being a comic.
Yeah,
because now it's been like you've been doing stand up for 11 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like from that first open mic to like now, like what was that process?
I mean, it's been like very varied in a variety of ways. Like, you know, there were the years that I really had no idea what I was doing. I had, you know, because I started with like somebody put me on their show. So I didn't know from open mics or how often people go up or the fact that you write stuff and you say it over and over again. I didn't know so much.
It was really like Marvelous Miss Maisel. Like the one comic who's like, oh no, that show is realistic.
I guess. Well, I don't think I had quite the trajectory that she did, success-wise. But assuming that they made the seasons, you know, in fact were years apart, then maybe.
It's sort of I like to think of any type of show like that. I'm always like it's condensed. Yeah, because it's like when you see a biopic and it's like it's you're not gonna sit in the theater for 20 years. You know, it's a condensed version of it. Yeah,
but I think it would be interesting if there were you know, I mean, there's always going to be more shows about stand-ups to actually say like, this amount of time passed.
Right.
Like, it didn't happen overnight. And specifically, it took this long.
You got it 10 years later.
Right.
And it's just another scene at an open mic.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing is like sometimes, you know, you go all the way to come right back where you started. And it's not for a bad reason. Like, it's like, you know, I don't go to open mics that much now. But like, if I had to tape something tomorrow, you better believe I'll be going to a million open mics to run it. Like, I don't care, you know? And so it's not like, it kind of depends on what's happening, like more immediately, at least for me, you know, where it's like now, I don't know. I mean, I get up probably 7 to 10 times a week, which was around the frequency of when I was like doing a lot of open mics. That was around how much I got up.
That's pretty good, especially for, you know, somebody that has a young child and lives in New Jersey. Like, to be getting up that much.
Well, but I also love, and I mean love, the Tetris of comedy logistics.
Yeah.
Okay? Like that is... I sometimes think of myself as like a comedy travel agent, where if you were like, Liz, I want a night in New Jersey. Can you suggest like show, like I have created a run here, there, the other place where people, cause I would do this in LA too. I mean, this was obviously pre-fires, but it was like, you know, I can do 3 shows in a night. I'm not promising they're good shows.
Sure.
But I will go because I really loved hitting my numbers for the week. Yeah. That was like very exciting to me. And it is still exciting. Like, you know, if I have this one, because there's like a couple shows in Jersey City and Hoboken and Rutherford, and I live in Jersey. So I love when I can do like a whole Jersey show, like for a night, you know, like a whole set of them. And I've created this like 4-show run where you start at one in Jersey City, open up a Hoboken, go to Rutherford, close the late show in Jersey City. And it's like, I've never done it and not been, like if you had a dash cam in my car, you would think I was in Speed the movie. Like just the most stressed out at some point in the night. But it's fun.
There is a fun. That's the thing I love about like New York City in general.
Sure.
The thrill of rushing to get somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a person that is chronically late,
okay.
So I'm trying to get better at it. That's,
sure.
You know, but I'm always just leaving my house at the last possible moment, and just like. It is. There's a real adrenaline rush to that.
Yeah, and I'm not a late arriver in general. That's the thing is like, you know, and I've gotten into relationships with some of these like show producers where I really do know them and they're able to trust me that it's like, okay, I will do this for you because I know that no matter, you know, come hell or high water, you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hear from you regularly. And also I take a lot of pride in the ability to like text just enough to be materially informative, but not more than that, you know, in that type of a situation. Because I think there is a balance.
Yeah, for
delicate as it is.
Well, that
you know?
I feel like that's the lawyer background.
Perhaps. Yeah. I don't doubt that. Yeah.
I think just knowing how to what you're talking about is just knowing how to be professional.
Sure.
Which is probably a thing that a lot of comics lack.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. Like, I just know that, like, to me, this is the most exciting thing in the world. And every now and then someone's like, okay, so what is it? And I explain it, and then they're like, oh, that sounds really hard. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Yeah. Like, it's not for everybody, you know? But I love doing that. So, but anyway, getting back, because we got on this track because we were talking.
Back to the origin story.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, basically, I did stand up for the first time, was in love with it. 3 weeks later, I wrote an hour and performed it in the back of a bar. I do have the tape. It was called A One-Woman Wedding, where I married myself on what would have been the 1-year anniversary of the civil union. I don't even know if you know what those are.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So, well, they were, you know, in and out in a flash, you know? But anyway, so I was supposed to get civilly united with a woman, but we broke up.
This is the woman that told you to do stand-up?
No, different. Yeah. But
did anything ever happen with that? Because you said you had a crush on her?
I had a crush on her. No, we're friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But her name is Lindsay Haley. She's brilliant. Really brilliant performer, writer, comic, whatever. Anyway, so actor. But anyway, so I write A One-Woman Wedding. I perform it. on what would have been the 1-year anniversary of the civil union that I canceled. So I've always been like kind of interested in like the performance art aspect of things, and anniversaries are big. Like my first album was on the 1-year anniversary of the stillbirth of our daughter Leo Pearl of blessed memory. And so, that's always been like a thing for me. Mm-hmm. And not in a conscious way, but just like I feel moved, I guess, to like make something sometimes, like when there's a commemorative aspect.
It sounds like a healthy coping mechanism.
Yeah, at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. So anyway, I did that show. I mean, it was basically a one-woman exorcism. It's crazy. But it was 56 minutes, and I do have the tape.
And this is 3 weeks.
Or maybe it was like a month or a couple months or something.
Even still. I mean, even to be doing that in like...
It was crazy. But it was ill-advised.
Sure,
you know what
course,
I mean? But I did it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing is like, I think because I was so like, not just green and new, but just like totally bewildered by this new life, I just was like, well, I have to do this. And I kind of still have that a little bit. Like I'm better as a performer and a writer, arguably. I mean, I am.
No, you definitely. I would. Yeah. I'd be shocked if you weren't.
Right. Right. So, but I felt very artistically driven to make that, and so basically, I did that. That was when I was still in Chicago for that semester because I was visiting at that semester in Chicago. Then I come back to New York, and then I was like doing stand-up. I basically had this like weird heckler show that I did with a friend at a bar for like, I don't know, a year and a half or something. And it was like anyone could speak from the audience. And that was like the thing. It was called Say Everything. And so I did.
Like Say Anything?
Yeah, but Say Everything. Right. And everyone would call it Say Anything. And I was always like,
no, that's not everything.
The name. Right. Which like, of course. So anyway, and I did that for that time. But I still didn't like know, oh, you could go to an open mic or you could like work on this. Like I had no idea. And it wasn't really until I moved to LA that I really started, like I knew about open mics later.
So you weren't even doing any open mics at this time?
No, I didn't know they existed.
And you're in New York?
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was like teaching law school in the day. It's not like I had friends who were comedians.
Right.
You know? Like I would go sometimes, and I remember I took a class at Gotham with Jim Mendrinos, who was and still is like fabulous in my opinion. I really, really adore him. And so I did like the showcase for graduation for that. Mm. And so I think like there was a guy in the class who I would go to some open mics with, but I didn't know they happened every day. I didn't know that like people do this every day. I had no idea. And I didn't have like social contacts with people who were like, no, you idiot. Like, this is what you do. I had no idea. And I continued to not know for like a good long while until I decided to move to LA. I lived there from 2017 to 20. And then that was really where I made comedian friends because I'm from here. Yeah. Now we're sitting in New York. And like, I mean, I was born in New York City and like lived here when I was very little. I went to high school here, but I live in New Jersey now and I grew up in New Jersey, whatever, but like close by.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think because I was coming up, I guess, in this scene, which is also the place that my family lives and all my friends from growing up live, I wasn't compelled to have comedian friends, really, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so I didn't know that like this is what we do all the time. Whereas when I moved to Los Angeles, and I had like a few friends.
Did you move there because you were pursuing comedy?
Yeah, and also at the same time as I was pursuing comedy, because my friend Shira's aunt Goldie is an actor. And so Goldie was like, well, you have to act also. And you should be in this acting class. So I took the acting class that she said. And I was like, okay. So I was like acting. And I was like, well, I have to write a show. So I like wrote a pilot, whatever. Because I was like, well, this is like what you do if you're doing this. Meanwhile, I wasn't going to like an open mic. But anyway, so I was doing all those things. And then I moved to LA because I was like, well, I feel like I should. Because like if I don't go now, I don't know what the rest of my life exactly is, but I feel like I probably won't, which I think is right.
Yeah.
And so I lived there for 3 years. And, you know, I mean, now post fires, everybody's like, I love LA. I love LA. Nobody ever said that. Okay. Nobody was saying that before. No offense. Like I have love for LA.
Yeah.
And obviously I have extreme empathy for victims of wildfires. I mean, of course, but like, you know, whenever it's just funny to me a little bit when people are like, I love LA. I'm like, literally, that was like never what anyone was saying. But anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of New York's thing.
Well, to hate. To hate LA.
No, I was thinking just.
That people, I love New York.
I love New York.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, shopping bags galore.
Yeah, you hate LA. Right. That's kind of, it's
a thing.
It's a perfect, it's a yin and yang.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, so now everybody loves LA. But I did love LA when I was there. And I still obviously have love for LA, as is the trend right now.
Yeah.
But I do. And I did, and I always will. I imagine, but like, like it was very good to me. I got, you know, an acting agent, and I got into an acting class that I now teach for remotely sometimes. And like, you know, found an acting teacher, Leslie Kahn, who's amazing. And like, you know, started actually like booking some things and whatever. So that was good. And even though LA, generally speaking, is not known for like a good place to come up as a comedian, I just, not really about the LA of it, but it was just like the time in my life when I think I was like ready to be the person who's like, I'll host the open mic at 4:30 in the place with the loud blender 3 times a week. And so that's what I did. I don't know what it was this cafe that's since closed. I mean, long gone. But like, I don't know what drugs they were selling in the back to have this even exist as a place. But that's where I met like everyone in the scene, because at some point they would come through for the 4:30 open mic, right? That I was always hosting. And that's where I made my friends who I really came up with.
So who are those people?
I mean, I don't know that you would know them, but like Mary Elaine Ramsey, Brie LaRose, who's a brilliant writer and director. Mary Elaine, I mean, enormously funny. Everybody who I'm saying is like really amazing. Rick Cesario, brilliant writer. Lexi Grace, Ben Hurwitz. I don't know if you know Ben.
That's a name I know.
Yeah. Because he moved here. Ben is so funny. I don't know. He might.
Does he do stand-up here? Mm-hmm. Okay, then maybe that's probably how I know him.
He's great. And we actually lived together for a bit because I got mugged at gunpoint outside of my apartment in Hollywood and was like too scared to live there. But I had a few months left on my lease. He was looking for a place. I was going away a bunch. He watched my cats, you know, whatever they did get fleas. But no, I mean, I'm not kidding. But also Ben, I think, would find that funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Ben is fantastic, as are all the people I mentioned. So anyway, but that's where I really feel like I came up. And I would do, Josh Edelman, great comic.
I know. Josh is, I've actually never met him, but when I was in LA over the summer, he booked me on a show. He was super nice to me, like just over DMs. The show ended up getting canceled, but very nice and very funny guy.
Yeah. And he directed my special. Josh is an amazing guy in a variety of artistic endeavors. He has a wonderful documentary called Mentally Al, which is about Al Lubell. Anyway, so brilliant. But those are the people who I really like. Those are still like my stand-up friends, you know, because that's really where I felt like I was like a beginner comic for real, right? And then I moved back because my wife, my then girlfriend, it was the pandemic, but I was moving back anyway. And so I came back, and then it was like full pandemic, but I did a ton on Zoom, like a lot. I don't know how, did you do Zoom?
I did. I did a few Zoom shows. It was that, cause I was about like 3 years into comedy and only 6 months into living in New York.
Right.
So I think I did a few Zoom shows with Vermont Comedy Club.
Oh, sure.
And that was pretty much it. That was all the comedy that I did during the pandemic. I started a podcast that I recorded 14 episodes of and have never released.
Oh, wow.
Probably never will. But this is round 2.
Yeah. Okay, great. I never released anything. Like, I think if I could like really be watching what I want to be watching as a person consuming, it would be people's unreleased whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
There's something really cool about that. I've been this is a bit of a tangent, but after seeing the Bob Dylan movie,
I didn't see it.
It's pretty good. You know,
okay.
it's like a solid, like as far as music biopics go, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I realized, you know, I know a decent amount of Bob Dylan, but there's so much music of his that I don't know. And so I went back and I've been listening to all his albums in chronological order.
Wow.
Including all of the bootlegs, which are very interesting to listen to.
Sure.
To hear just sort of the art that was like, this isn't done. This isn't for anyone.
So your taste might be my recording of a one-woman wedding.
I would love to see it. Yeah,
you would not. I'm gonna send it to you. I don't ever send it to anyone.
Okay.
But I'm just gonna send it to you because any impression that you have, I would love.
No, I'm very. Okay,
I'm gonna send it to you
because I only know, you know, 10-year comedy veteran Liz Glazer.
Okay.
I don't know 3 weeks into stand-up doing a one-woman show, Liz Glazer.
Fair. I think that's very fair. So, you know, I mean, listen, like we're at the beginning of 2025. If you would tell me at the end of 2025 I am famous, I would be thrilled, if only because I would hope that with that fame, I could support my family. I could, you know, have more control over my schedule and when I do and don't travel and not care about who's booking me or not because I have so much agency over that myself. But also it's like I can kind of imagine that I have that already. And to some extent I do. It's not like I'm so far away from that. But also, you know, I feel self-conscious saying that because then it's like, you know, there are many people, obviously, who are so far ahead of me. So going back to your original question.
Well, but I was also, I was wondering with that, and I want to hear what you're going to say, but that I wonder if the people that are famous, if they even feel like they have that, because I feel like there's always
that's where I was going.
Of like, it could all end tomorrow.
Right.
You know, I could.
Well, so and that's actually exactly where I was going, because if you remember earlier in this conversation, you know, I think you were asking whether famous people wonder if they could be more famous, which is a version, I think, of the same question, right? Like whether there is a point where you feel a comfort. And I'll say this is like, I was actually talking to somebody, this was right after the Don't Tell came out, and it did very well.
It's a great set.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. But it did well for me. And so this person, this other comic who's, you know, lovely guy, was like, so what do you want next? And this happened to be on a night where I was at that Jersey City show and then was going to do the Hoboken and the Rutherford and back to Jersey City. And I said to him, I was like, honestly, I love tonight. Like it's not like I'm doing the things that I'm doing now and feeling upset, like, I'm still here. Because I was so delighted to do that. And it's not to say that I'm not, like, you know, that whole run, I think I can make, I like talking money. I think it's like $225. I'm pretty sure that that's accurate, okay?
And that's 4 shows.
For those 4 shows, okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad, right? Certainly, there were times when
I've done plenty of shows for much less. Yeah,
right. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I mean, I remember because I journal about the most boring topics. I'm pretty sure it's like a list of my errands, and a lot of times I'll say like, I made this, I made that much money, whatever. And I remember I was on a trip in February 2020 to San Francisco. I took myself there, and I made like $175 a week, and I'm writing about how grateful I am for it. Right. Yeah. So fine. Which, by the way, just a side note. There is a very inspiring Oprah speech where somebody's like, how do you get all this stuff? You know, because she's Oprah. Yeah. She has a lot of stuff. And she's like, it's by being grateful for what you already have. And then she repeats it 3 times. So I do think about that. So I was very grateful for the $175 in San Francisco for the week. And I continue to be grateful for the $225 on a Saturday night for the night.
Yeah.
That said, this past Saturday night, I was able to I had one show that was like a sort of private, $400 in Riverdale. Then I was hosting, and I knew I was going to make $150 to host on the Upper West Side. And then I picked up closing a show in Harlem for $50, which meant, and now we're post-congestion pricing, okay, which I think about all day and night, okay?
Yeah.
So without even incurring congestion pricing, $600. And I could go home.
In one night?
In one night.
That's pretty.
So, but
pretty
then
good.
there are people,
good,
but I'm not saying that like, oh, it's so much or it's so little. It just is. It's just a number.
It is so funny because I mean, to me, I'm like $600 a night.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But I'm sure to like,
But that's what I'm saying.
John
Everything
Mulaney
is
or
right.
Kevin Hart or
even people we know who are just like, ugh, they're talking about $600. And honestly, sometimes I might be that person.
Right.
Right. Not because and maybe if I had that thought more often, I'd be more famous. I have no idea. I don't know, but I like to talk about the numbers because the numbers are the numbers.
We're just two Jews talking about money.
But I'm just saying because then it's just the number, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that, I'll make more, I'll make less, like it depends on the night, whatever it is. But if I'm enjoying doing it, yeah, of course I want to make more because I have to send my kid to daycare. And with all the congestion pricing, I have to pay $9 like every step I take.
Right.
Well, in a car. Today I came into the city. So I pay $8.30 on the train and then on the way back another $8.30. Okay, so we're talking $16.60.
My grandpa is gonna love this episode.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
good.
he loves.
Well, you gotta release it.
He's always asking me, "Oh, this is getting released." This is the real podcast.
My dad would ask me, how much costs you to live? And I remember, he's dead now, and now maybe I'd really enjoy talking to him about it. But I was always like very intimidated by that question because I'm like, I don't know, Papa. Because he was always like so like pressury about it. But it's not a bad question.
No, but it's that's my grandpa loves. He loves numbers and particularly money, because every time if he asks me about a show, how many people were there, right? Did you make any money? Like how much?
Sure.
Like
Sure. And the thing is, I really enjoy it when I enjoy it. If somebody's asking me it in like are you worth it?
Yeah.
Like, does your life have meaning? Because I used to take it that way when my dad asked the question.
Well, because I think you said it in an interesting way where you're like, the number is just a number.
It is.
And I think that's a very good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And like when you can be like, I made $20 tonight or I made $600 tonight, but that's not like the value of the night.
Well, also because sometimes, like if we really want to talk numbers, like you do a corporate, you can make $10,000.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it makes sense that you would because you're fundraising or you're raising the profile within the company, you're raising morale and they're a bank or whatever it might be. Like, it's not that it's without reason.
Sure.
Right? And also you have to do your best stuff, like if I'm making $8,500, I'm not, hey, let me try this new joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't be treating that like an open mic or like a 10-minute spot at a club.
Right. And then it's, it's whatever. There are people who make $25,000. There are people who make $100,000. It's like, it can be, and I don't think of it as like, oh, that's too much, that's not enough. We live in a capitalist society for better or worse, and it might be worse, but we're not living in it.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then it's like, to a degree, if you're doing stand-up for like a bank, it's like
banks are hilarious.
You're telling me. But yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To have that be the price,
Right. Yeah. Wait, I feel like before we got sidetracked. What was the?
Well, I was saying that I still like doing the night of the 4 shows in New Jersey.
Yeah, and it is interesting how like you like 10 years into stand up and you do still like you have more excitement than so many people that are in their first year of doing comedy. Like, how do you maintain that? And I guess it's kind of like the Oprah thing that you said.
Right.
And I know the only other person that I've talked to that I think really like has that level of gratitude. And
Mike Kaplan. Yeah. Yep. And so, I mean, when I first started in stand-up, what I really wanted was a mentor. And I had some pretty spectacular failures in terms of finding one. Some creepy prison notes that I sent to various comedians, Joan Rivers as an example.
Did you ever get a response from Joan Rivers?
I did meet her.
Really?
Yeah, but I didn't get, yeah. And I have a story about how the ghost of Joan Rivers borrowed my car. But whatever. You can find that on my album. But anyway, so, but Mike Kaplan, terrific comedian. I mean, just gold standard of anything. And I think, like, I don't know if it's because Joan died and then had ghost powers, because I don't know how that works.
Right.
But I have had the best mentors. And, like, I don't know anybody who has had better mentors than me. Mike Kaplan, Maria Bamford, Judy Gold.
Those are
people who
some good ones.
came into my life and like all have, they have different perspectives comedically and otherwise, of course, but I think that a unifying trait is like they're still really into what they do.
Yeah.
And I think that, yes, of course, like having mentors in terms of like writing, like one way that's good or whatever, right? Brian Scott McFadden is another example of somebody who's come into my life and is an amazing mentor. And I was just thinking about it when I just said writing. But like, just in terms of the sheer like zeal for doing it, I feel like that can carry you really far. I really believe that. And just the not being jaded. I think that comes also from having another career and getting started in this. I just, I'm not gonna find myself in this position where I feel like, I'm so burnt out. I hate it. It's not to say I never say I feel like I need a day off or I feel a little burnt out. Of course, because I'm working a lot.
Yeah.
That said, I think, well, first of all, I mean, I love a self-help book. It's like I'm not my best self unless I'm 8 weeks into a 12-week course that promises to change my life forever. That's like my thing.
Yeah.
I love it. But I read this hilarious self-help book that's from like the 1950s. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big. And it's like, it's hilarious because all of the examples are so dated. It's like, so the milkman's coming over. And it's like, okay.
I love reading stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really good. But there's a section of the book that's about public speaking. And in it, the guy, I don't remember his name, I'm sorry, but it's a very famous book. He says, everybody who's like, I'm bad at public speaking is like, well, I stutter or I this or I that. And he's like, none of that matters. The only two things that matter for public speaking are, number one, know what you want to say. And number two, have a burning desire to say it. And one of the reasons that I think it's important for me anyway to have a day off regularly is because the burning desire can get pretty hard if all you're doing is doing and doing and doing.
Especially if you're doing the same material every night.
Totally.
You don't want...
Right.
A lot of times I know I've had experiences where I do a joke for the first time and it kills.
Of course.
And then you're never going to get that back because you're never going to be that excited to say it again.
Right. And you can become a better actor.
Such
that you can find an in, even if you're genuinely perhaps not that excited to say that thing, you can find something about it that you're working on or whatever it is. But having that burning desire is critical to the doing of it well at all. And so if that's the case, at least for me, it is essential to have that, desire to do it, right? Mm-hmm. To actually say something of meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's What's the last self-help book you read? Is it that one from the 50s?
No, let me think. Hang on. What am I in the middle of? Well, I mean, I do Alan Carr.
Okay.
So that's How to Quit Emotional Eating, Good Sugar, Bad Sugar. But I feel like I always reread It's Not Your Money by Tosha Silver. That's a great one. Really good
What
for
is that
money.
about?
So it's very sneakily smart. And the basic premise is everybody's into manifesting, and manifesting is like, great, except for the fact that it's sort of like OCD in the sense that you believe you have power from your thought, and you do, but not in this obsessive way where you can't let any negative thought stunt the process, right? Yeah. But, obviously very big manifestation type of thinking and culture or whatever. She's like, listen, you don't have to manifest a thing. What you need for abundance basically is give everything away. Okay. And the joke is give me all your money, give me, here's my cult or whatever. But it's smart. It's basically having an abundant mindset is giving things away and just releasing from the ownership of your stuff in order to communicate to the universe effectively that you are a safe harbor and vessel through which money can flow. Because the basic premise is it's not your money, it's no one's money. It's just there.
It just exists.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of us have the capacity to hold it and release it. And if we hoard it, then we're basically communicating to the universe that you're not a safe person for it, because if I give you $5, it's never going to see the light of day again. Right. And so you give charity, you give whatever, because then you're communicating that you're safe for having money. Yeah. But it's more detailed, of course.
That's very interesting.
It is, right? Yeah.
I'm very bad with money.
Oh, you should read this book. I'm just telling you, Adam. I mean, it might change your life. It really changed mine.
It might. I also don't have any money.
Okay. Well,
is it good for that?
Yes. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I was making zero when I read the book.
Okay.
Zero. Okay.
And now you're making $600 a night.
Sometimes 10,000. Yeah, it depends. Right? So I'm just saying, whatever. And I don't mean it I'm always still self-conscious, despite the fact that I love talking about the particulars of money. My intention is not to flex about it.
No, I didn't take it that way at all.
I know, but I just I'm always, because that's the thing, my parents are you're talking about money, so protective of it, and I just like to buck that trend totally, but I'm never meaning it to show. You know what I mean?
No, and I think that's great. I think it's bad that it's a taboo.
I agree.
I think that's just I had this conversation. I had got into an argument with my parents about a reason, because it was at a family bar mitzvah where my uncle, or not uncle, my mom's cousin was talking about selling his Manhattan apartment, and I was like, how much did you sell it for? And he was like, that's an odd question. And I was like, what?
It's not.
And I understand that, it's, maybe it's a bit.
Did you Google it?
No, I guess I could have. I didn't really, the truth is I didn't really care enough. I was, but and I was, my opinion of it was it's only uncomfortable to talk about these things because that is a capitalist idea to keep people in line and in their place and not really knowing what their worth is. Yeah,
totally. And it's also I think that, and Maria Bamford is such a real beacon in this way. So I don't mean to take credit for this kind of openness at all, but I really have been converted to see the light on it. Which isn't always natural for me to really speak very openly about numbers. So she's been, hugely inspirational in that regard. But it's no one's saying that you are worth that amount. It's only taboo if you imagine some other meaning along with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's if it's not that, then it's just a number.
Right.
So anyway.
And it is, and I mean, I guess, and it is even like we use the phrase net worth. So it's like we do say like this person is worth
fair.
$1 million.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, this is, I think, wow, that
really
hour,
flew.
It really did.
It was fun, Adam.
Yeah, this was great. Thanks so much.
I hope your grandpa likes it.
This. I hope so too. I think he will.
Good.
I was gonna say I hope he's still alive when it comes out.
Me too.
He is.
I hope we all are.
I know he's 92, so it's it's
that's
not
amazing.
It's not a given.
Sure, of course.
Every day is a
gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, this was really.
It really was.
Really so much fun. Sorry I was a few minutes late, so we couldn't talk longer.
No, it's
no, I'm just sorry because it made the podcast shorter.
It was fun.
This was fun.
It was really fun.
Great. Do you have anything that I don't know exactly when this will come out? Do you have anything you want to plug?
So the likelihood is my special will be out. And so you can follow me at Liz Glazer, Google Liz Glazer, whatever. Have fun with the Google. You know what I mean? Put an extra word at the end to just see Liz Glazer, see what else comes up and find that rabbit hole and go down it at 3 a.m. That's what I
love those videos where it's like the Google auto search.
Totally. Right.
Like Andrew Garfield, Jewish.
Liz Glazer net worth.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, which Saturday night? But anyway, Liz Glazer, my special is called Do You Know Who I'm Not? And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Liz Glazer, everybody.
Adam Mitrani.